I think that I've gotten more bold, I'd say, in the past. I don't know. No. It's really just kind of dispersed. Let's just say the past decade, I've been gotten a lot more bold as far as communicating my beliefs that I keep to myself, because I just don't want people to I don't want to argue about it. Like, you may not think that, it's just that I have a reason for it, right? And I understand the security vulnerability and things like that, especially today with this mental health crisis going on. But simultaneously, I also consider others like myself, even if they are labeled as mentally ill, that they see some elements of truth. They see some pattern, right? And there's something that they believe in. But they just don't have it all figured out. And the more cognitive distortions you have, the harder it's going to be to actually discern what it is that you're looking at. I believe like the same thing I believe since I was 4, and like, focusing your intentions. Not trying to be cliche, but I just call it magical powers. You know, and it's just that I have a lot of evidence for it, right? But in the past like decade or something, it's just that a lot of things that come through in science, where it's like it's putting this very obvious picture together to me, where I'm at a point where it's like, okay, everything I put out there, I have to handle the turbulence, but there is enough empirical evidence already for me to successfully get through that, right? Even if it's like a little awkward and a little overbearing on me, I really would like to get this out there. And what others have been studying in science, longer than a decade, but it's now like coming together to say something really like if you look at if you kind of progress these models together and kind of combine them all together, integrated science and what we can achieve, and what who animals are, and who insects are, who plants are, and what they can do, how we can use them, how we can cooperate all with each other, become friends with everything, and what that result looks like. In addition to things that I've seen when in 2003 to 4, I was trying to get away from my life of drug abuse, and I started visiting different churches. One church actually thought I was auditing them because they had an auditor coming. I guess I just have that presence about me. And but I was actually just visiting churches because I was just curious about, okay, there's all these different denominations, and I know from experience that different people have different things to offer in different areas. They're not all the same, they're not all good in the same areas, but sometimes they get really like amazing. And I go around, I look at, and I learn from people, and I replicate, what they have, and I refine it, and I use it. And some people find that annoying. It's really kind of a core part of my personality. It's not really going to go anywhere. Even more so now that I found out that I'm an actual anarchist. What that's actually connected to is enormous and very sacred. So that's not going away. So I'm not really doing anything wrong, and I give out my advantages to others after I learn something and I refine it and I integrate things. I give it out to others. I try to do it in a safe way, but I'm not intentionally. I don't want to keep any advantage I have to myself. I want everybody to have every advantage I have, but just you don't want to give dangerous toys to small children either. The same principle applies to scale for adults and what they're capable of doing, or how well they are self-control and what they're motivated by. So cockroaches is something that I've been looking into lately, because I was actually telling you a true story that I actually thought for a moment I thought there were fairies out. I just thought the tree was covered in fairies outside my window. And so I went over and I was looking at them, and I realized that they're cockroaches. But it's just like, the peaceful feeling was already there. And it's like, they're insects. People have phobias of roaches, but you don't have to have a phobia of roaches. And you can actually appreciate everything and appreciate insects. And, honestly, they're kind of cool insects. So I don't want to pretend like I'm a cockroach expert. I got some literature from ChatGPT. I can give you some things I'm looking into from things distributed in the matrix of my mind that I'm seeing, that basically they can adapt very quickly because of their structure of their DNA and what that may mean in the future, but and what that may mean in the present, what that may mean in the past. We just don't know everything that's out there and everything that has happened. What can happen is enormous. I'm a software engineer, so I think in like blocks and modules. When I see blocks and modules, DNA or molecules or systems, I can relate it to a lot of different systems. Some software engineers may not be as good as I am at that, but I'm not. They may be, but I don't want to put anyone on I don't want to put software engineers on anywhere. Like they can't handle it. I just find it kind of unethical to put people in situations like that. But but I relate it to a lot of different things very quickly and see pieces and see how they can fit together. So when I see things like humans have DNA, and I read about what different parts of the DNA do, and CRISPR, Cas9, it's very obvious to me that we can change our entire makeup. It just takes some work to do it. And while others' minds may take it very seriously, a lot of it has to do with how proud and established they are in themselves and their current understanding, and they are basically solidifying those neural connections that make things difficult for them. And when you aren't proud, and you just keep working on the problem and keep refining your efforts, things start to become very easy for you. So, that is the actual core difference. And when people have a conversation about it, it's like, these things were tough and stuff like that. It's like, well, you're actually discussing your problem. You're not discussing my problem, you're discussing your problem. Right now, you're just not understanding that that's what's actually hindering you. So, but, I would like to live in that world, and I'm working for it. And Jesus supported it, and that was one of the main things that why I want to follow Christ is that, other people may think these things are stupid, talking to mulberry trees and being uprooted and planted in the sea, and it'll obey you. That's a really serious things to say, but that's also how my mind works. Looking into things like how you can do things like that, and it's worked like that from a very early age, inspired by Moses and Disney's Peter Pan and Merlin and DuckTales. DuckTales was an inspiration. Cloud Kicker, I just see all these things going on. The Boy Who Could Fly. I just see all these things going on. Never-ending story, and it's like you don't have any reason to not believe them when you're a kid, right? Unless someone specifically starts trying to do that to you. And kids are really just kind of left alone in a lot of situations where they just sit and allow their minds to run watching whatever. And it's like, well, it can be real. You're watching a movie. At least I knew I was watching movies, but it's like it can be real. Star Wars. So, that's what I think. And I think that there's enough evidence stating now that things can work like that. It's just that we also have to maintain control, because science is very complicated and there's a lot of dangers, things that they're constantly looking for, mutagens and things like that. And you really gotta know what you're doing. But essentially, there's a point like Steve I was discussing in his, I think the world's largest guitar lesson world record, that you pick the hardest parts for you and you practice those. And I wish somebody would have really told me that back when I was playing cello and guitar quite a bit when I was a teenager, because I actually had that idea in my mind. It's just like with motor, I had issues with motor coordination. I found that it's because I am autistic, and it's a lot of people with Asperger's has issues with their motor coordination. It just it gets frustrating. I just want to give up, and it makes combined with the thing where it's like as though you can't empathize with others, the motor coordination thing and wanting to give up, it kind of makes you look like a psychopath. But things aren't that simple. But I had the idea in my mind. I just didn't really follow through with it. And then when Steve Vai said that, I was like, it's good advice. I need to do that. Everyone needs to do that. Everybody needs to do that. It's great advice. Thanks for listening to me.